Hey everyone, welcome to Rebloom, the podcast where we explore the power of change, rediscovery, and living with intention.
That's right. We're your hosts, Lori and Jamie, two friends who really love a good story about transformation.
In each podcast, we're going to chat with inspiring guests who've made bold pivots in their lives or careers. They've let go of what no longer served them to embrace something more authentic, joyful, and true to who they really are.
And the best part, many of them reconnect with passions or dreams they discovered as kids. It's about finding the seeds planted long ago and letting them bloom again.
So if you're ready for real conversations about reinvention, purpose, and following your creative heart, you're in the right place.
Let's dive in and see what it takes to rebloom. This conversation was really meaningful to me because it's yet another person who I have great respect for. And, I've gotten to be in her presence and watch her work. And she's a great inspiration. And this conversation was very inspiring. And it was great to hear about handling rejection and what that looks like and not giving up and, doing work that brings you joy and making pivots more towards that. What did you take away?
I took away so much. And, our listeners, Lori has had the wonderful opportunity to meet many artists in person, and she brings many of our guests to us for us all to meet and hear their journey. And Gail's journey is an incredible one. She's a lifelong artist. She has known great success. She's pivoted along the way, and I think you will all enjoy this episode so much. So sit back and listen to Gail's story. Hey friends, hey Lori, let's rebloom. I am so excited about today. Hey Lori, how are you?
I'm so excited because we are interviewing one of my friends, Gayle Kabaker, who I have had the honor of traveling with twice now. And I am in total awe of her talent. And I know a little bit about her story, but I can't wait to hear a little bit more.
Well, I can't wait to hear more, and her accomplishments are incredible. And let's welcome her on. Hi, Gail. How are you?
Hello. I'm so happy to be here.
Oh my gosh, we're going to have a great chat. So I will just
We
share a little
are.
bit about you before we ask you to share more. What I know is that there was a discrepancy. Jamie and I were talking. I thought you said 7 New Yorker covers, but is it 10?
It's actually 10. I hope I've updated everything on all my stuff, but it's 10.
10.
And let's brag on that. Come on.
That is
as of last summer. Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And you have had a long and illustrious career as an illustrator. And one of the things I can't wait for you to talk about more is your trip to Australia this year, because, oh my God, what a trip of a lifetime. So we'll get into that. So really what we love to do is we focus on pivot points and times when you had a rebloom or you made a shift in your career. But we really like to start almost from the beginning. So do you want to tell us a little bit about who you were growing up and what your interests were and what you love to do, and then kind of how that led into the next step?
Great. Well, I was the oldest. My brother is super smart, 18 months younger. My sister is 6 years younger. My talent was that I could draw. And so that's kind of how as long as I can remember, I always loved to draw. And pretty quickly, I became, probably as a young teenager, I became really enamored with fashion and fashion illustration. And I knew from a really young age that I wanted to be a fashion illustrator. And I actually had a babysitter who ended up becoming a fashion illustrator for the Washington Post. And I remember cutting out her illustrations and having them pinned up on my bulletin board. And so I went right to art school out of college. My parents were super supportive. My dad was a writer and a correspondent. My mom was a mom. She wasn't creative, but she was crafty, which is funny because, and Lori and I have talked about this, I'm not crafty at all.
Oh, I just saw what you posted with your granddaughter, so I beg to differ. I see more crafting in your future.
I do. I think I was influenced in Mexico. Anyway, so they were super supportive for me to go to art school right out of college. So I went to the Academy of Art because they were kind of the only school that had a degree in fashion illustration on the West Coast. And my parents had moved to LA and from Washington, D.C. And I wanted to go to school in New York City. They didn't want me to be 3,000 miles away. We compromised on San Francisco. So I went to the Academy of Art, and I just never thought about doing anything else. And I got out of school and I started freelancing right away. I had a super influential teacher my senior year. Gladys Parent Palmer came to our school, and she was just like, a very famous fashion illustrator that had this crazy loose style. And you know how you learn how to draw very traditionally in art school? Mm-hmm. Well, she came in and she was just like, super loose lines and gestural, and completely changed the way that I drew and paint. Actually, I didn't paint yet. But anyway, so I got out of school, I started freelancing right away, and I just kind of never had a real job and always been a freelancer.
That's amazing. So were you doing, when you moved into doing illustration, was it also mostly fashion oriented?
Yeah, I did fashion illustration for a number of years in San Francisco. And then I met my husband, Peter Kitchell, who was a very successful, at that time, watercolor artist he was one of the first artists to have a lot of success selling large abstract watercolor posters and prints. So he was kind of on the he was one of the first to do that. I mean, royalties basically bought this land. Like, he did really well. And I met him during this time, and he was building this house in Massachusetts, and I just tagged along for the ride. And then we ended up moving here, and not a lot of fashion work in the boonies of Western Mass. So I started branching out into general illustration, food, travel, all that kind of stuff. And I always had an agent. I took out ads and like the workbook and the black book, and, pretty traditional illustrator, with doing, a lot of advertising work and magazine and editorial. And then I started to paint. And it took me a while to kind of find my voice with paint. And I've always had an agent until about 6 years ago. I always had an agent. I like working as a team. I'm a good team player. But I started doing this new style that my agents didn't think was marketable. And then all of a sudden, I was up for my first cover of the New Yorker with my June brides, which was this new style that my agents didn't think was marketable. And I had about 2 months in between when they told me they were interested in it to when it actually happened. So I told my agents, well, You might not think it's marketable, but the New Yorker likes it, so maybe it is. And let's just put more of this work up in case I get it. So if it happens and people come to our websites, they're not just going to see one thing and everything else is different, because the other work that I was doing was like kind of collage and ink line, and it was really different. It was really different.
I would love to see some of your earlier work. That would really be interesting to me to see. I know you love to draw people, and you put that sign of life in everything that I see you draw now when I'm traveling with you. Were you always enamored with drawing people, even from the get-go?
Yeah, yeah, I think that's my fashion, like I always loved drawing women in beautiful dresses. And then I became, I don't know, I've pushed myself over the years of, I mean, it's really only been less than 10 years I've been keeping a actual sketchbook. And it's really only in the last year that I realized when I'm using my sketchbook, I really only want to do stuff where there's people in it. So I don't get that excited about doing a landscape. I don't get that excited about doing a still life. So I just always make sure that I'm trying to put a person in some way, it could even be abstract.
And it's interesting too, we've learned from many of our guests the seeds of inspiration that come along the way. And so sort of taking you back to art school, and you were talking about that loose style. I see that in the New Yorker covers. I mean, as an untrained eye, but I see that beautiful loose style. Has that stayed with you your whole career, or do you see changes within your career that you like something and then maybe go down a path and then pivot to something else, or how have you evolved that way?
I mean, I've definitely had plenty of assignments where I paint, I scan, I collage and design in Photoshop, and it becomes like, a million layers, super intricate, but it still looks fairly loose, but I know it's not. I know that it's like, oh my God, like, it's so complicated. But I've always tried it to give everything have the appearance of being loose. Now I get really excited when I do something and it's really only a painting. I don't mess with it in Photoshop. Like, to me, I mean, Photoshop's a great tool. I'll use it whenever I need it. But to me, my most successful work is that, I haven't done anything to it.
Well, I got to witness you evolving a little bit even on our recent trip, because we had Maru Godis with us, who her style is really loose. We were all kind of inspired and, watching how she worked. And that's one thing I want to thank you for, is you are a really good gatherer of people. And I think gathering with your kindreds or like-minded people and learning from each other is really a great way to stay inspired and engaged and push yourself. So I saw you trying some things that were new to you, but it still felt like Gail. The way you use color, the way you put paint down and in shape and line, and I was just totally in awe watching you work. And so I encourage people to find their tribe in that way. And even if you meet for coffee regularly and draw together or talk about your work or whatever, I think that's a really good way to just stay inspired.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
also teach, which is another way. I know I teach, Jamie teaches, and I
Yes.
find that you get so many gifts back from teaching that are, you feel like you're sharing, but everybody shares right back. And I always go away learning different techniques, or, I'll share a technique and then watch people use it in a whole different way than I would have. And
Mm-hmm.
I personally love that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. As you're saying that, I was listening to you, but I was also thinking, what what do I get out of teaching? And I have to say, I think I learn more about myself on an emotional, communicative level with teaching, because you're interacting with often 17 or 18 people, all with their own stuff, all with their insecurities, their issues, their fears. Oh my God, like how many students are afraid to use black or afraid to draw a face or this or that? So for me, I definitely like get inspired, like, oh my God, what color is that? Like, I need that color. I don't think that, I think for teaching for me has been a way of learning how to become almost like a better person,
Yes.
like it's really because I have a tendency to be, to really speak my mind quickly sometimes. And with teaching, I've really learned to look at something, say something nice really fast,
Right.
even if it's like a mess, like find something really nice to say quickly, and then like take my time and figuring out, because believe me, I learned the hard way. Like I've had people cry, I've had people get upset with me, like I feel like it's been a real learning process of learning how to become a good teacher.
Well, and I think becoming a good teacher is part of, and thank you for teaching others. I know Lori does, and I do too. I think one of the things that you think about too is when the students come to you, first of all, they've put themselves out there. There's a level of fear just to even show up. And so there should be a reward even at that. They've brought themselves, they've pushed aside some fears to actually come to the class. But I think what I get in teaching is that when you're doing exactly what you do, you're encouraging them, you're saying, yeah, you can do it. And you're giving them maybe the information, but also the encouragement to move forward subliminally. When I'm sitting here in my own world and going, I can't do this, I don't feel like doing it, I'm like, you can do it. Like those same words are coming right back to you. And I think it just reinforces that we all go through those periods. We all have periods where we need to try something different. I've been showing Lori, so I'm a photographer, and I'm trying really hard to draw, and I'm trying hard to find my style, and I've been playing with Procreate. So I keep showing her all these things. Look what I did. Look what I did. And I'm not quite there yet, but you know what? That's okay. I'm just having fun. And I'm fine showing it, and I'm fine that it's no good. And she's like, looks good. Probably doesn't, but she's
no. I would give you suggestions. I just love that you're so giddy about it, and you're having so much fun, because I think that's when the magic happens. Like if you're dreading it, you hate it, whatever, no good work comes out of that. So just joy.
And that's the thing, as a good teacher, we may be giving them tools or instructions, but we really hopefully are giving them joy. And I think then we get the joy back. That's what I at least think.
Let's take a quick minute and thank our amazing sponsors. Our podcast is proudly brought to you today by Jet Creative and Urban Stems. Jet Creative is a women-owned marketing firm committed to community and empowerment since 2013. Are you ready to rebloom and build a website or start a podcast? Visit jetcreative.com/podcast to kickstart your journey. They will help you bloom in ways you never imagined. And bonus, our listeners get an exclusive discount when you mention Rebloom. And a huge thanks to Urban Stems, your go-to and our go-to source for fresh, gorgeous bouquets and gifts delivered coast to coast. Use Bloom Big 20 and save 20% on your next order. And don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Rebloom Podcast. Thanks to our sponsors, and thanks to you for joining us today.
Okay, so we went off on a tangent for a bit.
Sorry, we did.
No. We all did. Anyway, but I'm curious about a time in your life when you were managing your daughter, who is a singer, musician. And I know, I assume that took up a lot of your time and your life.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering, were you during that period, were you still creating, and did you have a career of your own going simultaneous to that?
Well, it's really interesting how I betcha if I look at the arc of my career, during the periods like this time where I was really focused on my daughter, so her name's Sonia Kitchell, her career starting, when she got a record deal when she was 15. So for about 4 years, I was very, very focused on her career, and mine just kind of dropped by the wayside. I didn't stop. I just wasn't getting very many assignments. And at that time, I really didn't have I didn't have a practice of painting on my own. So if I didn't have assignments, I wasn't making art. Like that's kind of how it worked. Like I basically was a commercial illustrator that mostly worked when I had jobs. So, and I didn't have a sketchbook practice. So when I was on the road with her, no, I wasn't working. And then when she was 18 and I was kind of gracefully asked to, back off. And I mean, she had a huge team, like it was pretty, it was a big deal. And I still kept an eye on things, but I wasn't traveling with her anymore. And all of a sudden I was like, okay, what am I going to do now? And I actually found a really good life coach, and I did some sessions with her because I felt like I was at a crossroads. Like, what am I going to do? Like, what else would I do? And she helped me realize that there really was nothing else that I wanted to do. And I mean, I can barely remember those sessions. I just remember that it was a really big turning point in me just kind of doubling down and recommitting to probably making art for myself. That's probably when I started doing that. If I could probably figure it out, and I should, because I would like to know, but I would guess that that's what happened. Because I really hadn't done that very much. Yeah.
So interesting because, I've been with you on a couple of trips now, and you draw pretty much everywhere we go, and you draw incessantly. So I imagined you when you were touring with Sonia that you had your sketchbook and you were
No,
drawing backstage everywhere you
no.
went.
Oh my God, how I wish I would have the most amazing documenting of that time. But for years, I would I had artist friends who would do these incredible sketchbooks, and I would look at them and I'd be just like, oh, I wish I was a sketchbook artist. And I would buy the sketchbooks and I would never use them. And then I'd take them on vacation. I'd be like, oh, I'm going to be on vacation. I'll use it. And it wouldn't even come out of my suitcase because it felt like work. And then a friend of mine was running a yoga retreat in Costa Rica, and she had an extra spot and she invited me to come. And I had a total breakthrough. All of a sudden, I started drawing and painting in the sketchbook, and I didn't care what it looked like. That's how I had my turning point. And the rest, there was a lot of people on that retreat, like, I don't know, 20, 25 people. And people would be walk by and they go, oh, that's cool. And I'd be like, really? I think it's a terrible drawing. You like it? And then I was like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
And I really, it was a complete turning point that I learned how to use a sketchbook and not care and have it be fun. And there was like no turning back after that.
So now when you travel, just as Lori had asked, when you're traveling, are you sketching each day, or what's your thought process with your sketchbook?
Oh yeah. When I travel now, it's like I get to use my sketchbook every time I'm sitting in a cafe or in an airport or, whatever. Um, so to me, because I don't use it that much when I'm home, honestly. Like I have a
Interesting.
I have a dedicated sketchbook to my granddaughters that we can talk about, but I don't make time to go sit in a cafe. I live out in the country. When I'm home, I'm very focused on painting in my studio. So what seems to have happened lately is my sketchbook is what I use more when I'm traveling. So for me,
Interesting.
it's like just pure joy to be able to just not care, draw, not care if someone's looking over my shoulder, whatever.
So the painting that you're doing back in your studio when you're home, are they influenced or by your travel journals, or are these mostly projects like assignments that you're doing, editorial, the New Yorker? I know you did some stuff for Maker's Mark and Vital Voices. Is most of that's the work that's happening in your studio?
Yeah, it's both. I go through phases where I have a lot of assignment work and then I'll have not very much and I have commissions and I mean, I should be submitting New Yorker cover ideas all the time and I go in spurts and I submit and then, I get rejected and rejected and rejected and then I take a break and then I start submitting again and so it's kind of all of it. But when I come back from traveling, this is why I've started taking a week after a trip. Even our Mexico trip, I took an extra 6 days because I just want to have really quiet, focused paint time by myself. And when I teach with Jennifer Orkin Lewis, who goes by August Wren, she and I teach all over the world, and I have started taking a week now after we teach so that I can paint for myself because we do not get that much time to paint for ourselves when we're teaching.
Yeah, you
Right.
don't.
Right. Right.
So I'm going to change the focus of the conversation again because we had these conversations when we were together, and this is about how your diet and health, because I believe you've made pivots in that world, and I think that's another really important thing to talk about. So can you kind of share that journey a little bit with
Sure.
us?
Well, both my parents died very young. My mom was 48, my dad was 57, both of cancer. And I've been a kind of a health nut since I was, I don't know, 23. Organic and blah, blah. But about 12 years ago, I watched a movie called Forks Over Knives. Oh, no. Okay. It started where I was going to a spin yoga studio, and the fitness diva who ran the studio was super cool. And I gained like 10 pounds over the years. They just crept up and crept up. And so I asked her if she'd help me lose 10 pounds and I'd illustrate my journey and write about it and I pitch it to magazines. Okay. She's like, great idea. Okay, let's start with a 28-day vegan challenge because she's a big vegan. She's a big vegan. So I was like, okay, I can do anything for 28 days. And then part of our homework was we had to watch them. Oh, and then she formed a group around that. So it was a Facebook group, daily email, a lot really good support network. And it was hard. I mean, I wasn't even vegetarian. So it was a whole new way of cooking and eating for me. But very quickly, I started looking really different. I started feeling amazing. And watching these movies, the most important one was Forks Over Knives. I started really resonating with the connection between, oh no, sorry. Hang on.
It's okay. It's
All right,
okay.
here we
Every
go.
time.
Okay.
It does. You started right. Go ahead. You started
Yeah,
resonating with.
I started really resonating with what these movies were talking about, the connection between illness, cancer, and meat and dairy. It just
Mm,
made sense to me. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to stay vegan because I don't need, I believe this makes sense to me, and I don't need to make my risks higher by continuing to eat this. And then how good it was for the planet and the animals, all that stuff started coming in too. So it felt like my way of making a difference, my little way of making a difference. And so it's been a really important journey for me, and a lonely one sometimes. I mean, on our trip, I was the only vegan. I mean, Jennifer is happy to eat vegan whenever we're teaching and traveling together. But usually I keep my mouth shut about it unless someone asks me, because believe me, when you're with a group of people and you're the only one, it brings up stuff for people. People feel like
Yeah.
they need to justify why they do what they do. And I'm just I'm just always like looking for ways to be as healthy as possible, because I have a lot I want to do, and traveling the way that we do is like, I'm 65, like I want to do this for a long time. And so, I jog and I work out with a trainer twice a week, and I just really put a lot of energy and effort into staying healthy. The maintenance part of it is the hardest part. It's like finding a way to live that doesn't feel like you're in constant deprivation is
Hmm.
always a
Yeah.
little tricky.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what people struggle with the most. I don't feel too deprived. And honestly, I just wrote a newsletter today, and I started it out by saying, I started it in a cafe after you guys left. And my weakness are croissants. Like when I'm traveling, if I'm in a cafe having my soy latte and I smell fresh croissants, I have to have one.
Hmm.
So, I break my vegan rules occasionally. I'm not perfect.
Occasionally. Well, for a croissant, I would break it. Yeah, you kind of have to. Well, maybe occasionally, but yeah.
But
But for the most part, it's changed how you live and how you feel, and that's important for everybody, for
well,
everyone.
and I
Yeah.
have to say, I mean, I watched you cook and prepare meals, and I think, I thought maybe I could do this because I love everything that you prepared and shared with us, and I know you love being in the kitchen, and
And oh
so
my God, we had the most beautiful kitchen in our
oh
mansion.
my
And we
god, I know. We had a milk frother or this incredible I'm like I felt like I was royalty.
yeah.
Like, what
So
did I do to
special.
deserve
Well,
this?
the thing is that what most people don't realize is that it's really not that hard. You just have to plan. You
Right.
can't eat this
Yeah.
way on the fly. You have to plan, You so I'm a planner, so it's kind of natural for me.
Well, one thing that because my word this year is move, so I've been trying to get more steps in trying to move my body, but also you're right about the planning because the other thing that I've been trying to be consistent on is making some kind of really, really healthy stew or soup or something on Sunday that I can eat through the week because, if I can just go in there and it's already ready and all I have to do is heat it up, that works for me. So
Yeah.
there are
Yeah.
tricks that you can find to make this work. And I'm sure you have a ton of those. You should write a book about all of this, Gail.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I know I have a book in me, and one of these days I'll do it.
I think you have
Okay.
several books in you anyway, but go ahead,
I
Jen.
think you do. Okay, so you and I, Gail, we could pivot with you on all these different tangents. I love it. So now I'm going to pull us back. I have a question. So Lori is a lifelong professional artist. I am not, and many of our listeners are just kind of dipping their toes into the art world. And you mentioned something about having an agent, but no longer having an agent. And I know from speaking with you that, back when you started, obviously, you needed to have an agent, and now things with the internet and things have changed. How has that world changed for you, and how are you getting jobs, and what's available to folks if they're wanting to put their artwork out in the
Okay,
world?
that's two questions.
Yes, it
Okay,
is. Sorry.
so one, how's it changed? I'll answer that one first. I realized 6 years ago I didn't need an agent. All I needed was a good lawyer. And I have
Ah,
a great lawyer who will look over contracts and give me really good advice because I hate contracts. So Chuck helps me with my contracts, and now he actually has started negotiating for me, which is amazing. And
okay.
that because really asking for money is very hard for most artists.
Yes.
They
Yeah.
usually sell themselves too cheap. And so I'm pretty good at asking for what I want, but so I mean, he just has he's helped me so much. And I also have a network of artist friends that I've kind of built this little network. And there's certain people, like if I get a job, I know, okay, I'm going to ask him what he would charge because I know he's going to, of all everybody I know, he's going to charge the most. And then I'll just say, well, I'm not at his level, so I'll just come a little under. So I just have different people, like Jennifer knows a ton about the licensing world, not that I've done hardly any licensing, which is so silly because I know I could be, but it's just never happened. But then the other question about how do people like get into this? This is something that we always ask whenever we teach our workshops, or is what's your intention with your
Mm-hmm.
practice? Do you want to make a living at this, or are you doing this just for fun and joy? Because if there's very different, like
Yes.
we would give very different advice. And I just try to help people focus on what makes them happiest and what kind of work brings them the most joy, and just know that when you're starting from that place, kind of the universe works with you, and it should work. I talked to a student recently, the son of some friends, who's going to I can't remember, Parsons. I think he's going to Parsons. And he's in illustration. And he wrote me and he said, would you have a conversation with me? And I said, sure. And then I was like, before I got on the phone with him, I was like, don't be discouraging. Don't just focus on how hard it is to make a living. So
Yeah.
what I did is I just talked about how you got to be good for a young person. You got to be good at everything. You got to be able to
Mm-hmm.
do animation and build websites and paint and draw. And, like the more you can do, the more work unless you have a trust fund and you don't have to make money. You know what I mean? That's the other piece that I always ask people. Do you have a husband that makes a ton of money? Or do you need to pay your mortgage? You know what I
Right.
mean? Like let's get
Right.
real. Like, what's your motivation? Yeah.
Yeah.
So interesting that we're talking about this because I just had this conversation with our daughter Kenzie this morning. I sent her, we're at this place where she currently technically works for us, but she has a lot of autonomy. And Steve wants to retire. I'll probably never retire, but there's the whole conversation of this transition and what that will look like. And so I sent her these list of questions, things like, what do you need to make financially? Like, what does success look like financially for you? What
Yeah.
does success look like emotionally for you? What are your drivers? What are you wanting to, you know, things that are really good to ask yourself if you are doing this professionally.
Yep.
Professionally.
Really important.
Yep.
And the other thing that it's interesting. I teach social media, and I also have worked with. We spend the summer in Chautauqua, New York, and I have had the benefit of working with a lot of young artists and talking with young artists. And I teach at the New York Botanical Garden. I teach artists, and they need to know how to market themselves. And they're like, "Oh, I'm just drawing. Isn't it great?" I'm like, "No, you're in sales. You're in sales. You're in marketing. You got to do all this." To your point, not only do you need to know how to draw and have multiple levels of, how you create art, but you also need to know how to put yourself out there and greet people and put your head up and shake someone's hand and connect with people. And it's a lot. It's a lot.
So, talking about marketing and putting
Yeah.
yourself out there, Gail, I want to talk about the Australia
I was thinking, here's
opportunity.
the perfect segue to
Here we
Australia.
go.
Yeah, the perfect, because they'll tell us about how that happened.
Well, okay, because the way that I got that job, well, first of all, it was from being a New Yorker cover artist because um, uh, Tourism Australia was the client, Condé Nast Traveler was the team, and what they wanted to do is they wanted a Condé Nast Traveler editor to take a New Yorker magazine artist on a trip to Australia and have the artist paint their experience of Australia. So I got
Oh my goodness.
I got this email like 8 months before, um, talking about this project. Have you ever been to Australia? Would you want to go to Australia? I was like, no and yes.
Of
And they
course.
said, well, we don't
Yes.
know if it's going to happen. And then I didn't hear anything for months and months. And then finally, sometime in August, I got an email. They said it's happening. We'd like to do a Zoom chat with you and the potential editor, and just have a chat with you guys. So I didn't have it yet. So we get on the Zoom call, and the editor is this young Asian guy, probably 33 years old. And I think I had gotten his name beforehand, so I had looked up his social media. Very important. Afterwards, I found out they combed through my social media. Like they knew a lot about me before that Zoom call, and I knew a lot about the editor because I had combed through his social media, he looked really good on social media. Anyway, so we get on the Zoom call, and all of a sudden they say, well, we're going to drop off and we're just going to ask you questions, and it's just going to be you two on there. We're going to record it, and this is what we're sending to the client. So it was like we were auditioning. I had no idea. No idea.
Oh my God.
So the two of us are on there, and, luckily we had good chemistry. It went well. We ended up getting the job, and it came together so fast. And thank God the timing, because Jennifer and I were teaching 2 back-to-back weeks in Italy, and I basically flew from Massachusetts to LA to Sydney, spent 10 days in Australia, and then flew to Florence, recovered for 6 days, and then taught for 2 weeks. So it was like a really intense 5 weeks. But what I learned, the experience in Australia was, oh my God. It was just like, it was completely life-changing in that we were a team of about 10 people. The Condé Nast team, director, producer, the client coordinator, then the photographer who didn't do any photography, it was all film, the sound engineer, the hair and makeup, and then we would always have a person or two in it wherever we were. We went to Sydney, we went to Tasmania, and we went to Kangaroo Island. And okay, so we're staying in incredible hotels.
Yeah.
They knew I was vegan. Like I warned them because they talked a lot about how food was going to be a big part of this. And I was like, I hope the fact that I'm vegan is not an issue because not going to fake it, and they were like, no problem, no problem. But having before this trip, I was always felt very awkward and uncomfortable in front of a camera. Like in photographs, I would always be super stiff. And when Jennifer and I would try to take videos of ourselves, like, Lori, you're so good at this. We would always just come off super stiff. And what I learned on this trip, first of all, when you have hair and makeup, everything.
It does.
And, she was like my best friend for 10 days. I trusted her. She knew how I like to look. She knew how I wanted my hair to look. Every minute we were filming, and we filmed for like 12 hours in each place. She was taking care of me, and the photographer was just like this love of a guy from LA who he's just like, don't worry, I've got you, like you are good. And he taught me how I like to call it the art of the lean. Like when you're standing there, don't just stand there. Lean on something. All of a sudden, you look more natural. You're more comfortable. So I took all of this kind of newfound confidence and knowledge with me to Italy, and I made some great videos with me and Jennifer. And when I'm photographing our group, I know what to tell people. So it's like I'm constantly sending the photographer, I'll text him a photo, and I'm just like, I'm leaning, like these great pictures of me in different places just because he inspired me. But yeah, it was. Sorry.
Okay, wait, I have a question. I've got a question. So when you're in Australia, are you painting in Sydney? Is it almost like your journals that you had been doing?
No. It was,
yeah.
They definitely, I painted on camera, kind of fake painting for filming. I drew a lot, but basically my part of the deal was creating 2 paintings, one for Tasmania, one for Kangaroo Island, when I came home, that they would use. So they had all this filming of bits and pieces of me drawing and painting, but it was kind of all, I don't want to say fake, because I was drawing and painting, but and then when I came home after Italy, when I got to Florence, I did my sketches. So it was a little weird because here I am like with this incredible view of the Duomo in Florence, and I'm like drawing Australia, But I wanted to get the sketches approved before I moved into Italy.
Gotcha.
So I did the sketches, got them approved, and then after 5 weeks, I came home and I just painted in my studio. And I had painted something in Sydney for myself that they ended up buying, which was awesome. So they actually got 3 paintings from me. So that was the deal.
That's amazing.
Do you have any advice if someone doesn't have hair and makeup and a great photographer and a team?
Question.
Do you have advice other than the lean that you picked up that you apply to your? Because I've noticed a big change in your reels and your storytelling. I think like you just had one in your Substack today that was beautiful.
Thank you.
Do you have any other suggestions?
Well, and I have to do this. I sat down with the makeup artist Marnie at the end of the trip, and I was like, okay, tell me all your favorite products. Tell me what's your secrets. Like when you do my eyes, what are you doing? For like old over 60 eyes. So I have this whole illustrated story that I keep meaning to do for older, over 50. Here's some tips for you. Okay, so first of all, I would say go get your makeup done somewhere. Like learn how to do your makeup if you care about that stuff. Go to a professional, get it done, get some good stuff so you can do it yourself. And then also have good lighting, like have good lighting in your studio. And film yourself and see how you look best, like, and
Right.
then like, you're so good at this, Lori, and then don't care. You know what I mean? Like, just put yourself out there and be yourself and don't care. Because
Right.
honestly, those are the things that I care about. But some people, they could give a shit about wearing makeup. You know what I mean? Like, that's not important to them. I learned some tricks from her just about like concealer and foundation and like hair products and hair oil, and like all these different things. And I don't know, that kind of stuff makes a
It's being authentic too. I think it's just what you said though. Some people care, some people don't, but it's putting that your authenticity out there. And I think the more you do that, the more real, because that's what people want to. I mean, yes, it's going to be nice to look at someone that looks pretty, but when you're telling us the real, we want to know real. And
Mhm.
that's amazing. That's amazing.
So Jamie and I did some filming
Oh,
for
you
a
did.
media company about a year ago, and we did have hair and makeup, and I don't wear makeup usually at all. So for me, I would look in the mirror and think I looked kind of like a clown. So in my social media, if I had to worry about looking good all the time and my hair being in place and having great makeup, I would never post.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
So for me, I don't care about that
Right.
stuff.
You know,
But
the
that's
advice.
me, and somebody else, like you said, somebody else that's important, and they should do what makes them feel the best.
I think sometimes we get so caught up in how we look, whether it be, I look fat or I look wrinkled or I look this way. And many years ago, I took a photography class and someone said, when you look at a picture of your mom or your grandmother, what do you see? And you see your mom. You see the person that you loved. You don't see wrinkles. You don't see that she was 5 pounds heavier or she needed to lose 10 pounds. You see the person that you love. And I think when we just if we have the courage to just put ourselves out there, people will see the people that they like and they know and they love. They're not seeing all our flaws. They really are not. And if they are, they shouldn't be our friends anyway. So they should not be our friend.
Well,
Because you
I
know
have
what?
to
We've all
say,
got
when
them.
I first met the photographer, the first day of shooting, I told him, "Listen, I hate how my neck looks from certain angles from the side.
Yeah.
I hate my neck." And he's like, "Don't worry, I got you." And then in the final cut of the final videos, there's definitely a few neck shots that I'm like, eh.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you know what? I was like, it doesn't matter. It totally doesn't matter. But, I have to say, when I'm doing portraits, I mean, I did 100 portraits for Vital Voices for a book and an exhibition, all women, all ages. And I mean, it is a really tricky landscape when you're painting women. Like I painted Madeleine Albright. Madeleine's got a lot of age and jowls and my first pass at her, the feedback was, let's just take it back a little bit. Like, we don't want to,
Yeah. She doesn't need to be 20, but
no, no,
yeah.
no, no, no. But so there's
Yeah.
ways to soften things so that it's the most flattering portrait of the person, but it's still them. But I
Right.
did
Yeah.
find that the more classically beautiful the woman, not that these women hardly ever got to give input, but when they did, oh my God, the more beautiful they were, the more picky they were.
Oh, that
You
doesn't
know?
Yeah.
surprise me.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was like, are
Yeah.
you kidding me? Like, you want me to like move that like your hairline like a fraction, like who's gonna know? Like nobody sees that.
Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
So it's interesting that all of these pivots. We've said this earlier. I love Ina Garten's new autobiography, and she talks about being ready when the luck happens.
Mm.
And I love that. It's so interesting. Your style evolved. You were ready when the New Yorker happened. I also loved that they kept saying no, but you kept going back. I
Oh
think, could you
God.
talk, I know I was going to make a point, but rejection is part of being in the art world. And
Yeah.
it's hard. It is really hard because you're like, gosh, darn it, I work so hard on this. And what do you
Yeah.
mean I don't like it? And can you
Yeah.
talk a little
I
bit
mean,
about
I've submitted
rejection? And
some of my that I think are the best paintings I've ever done in my life, and either and I don't even get a response, much less a rejection. But you see, the problem is that sometimes, I mean, there's no rules with the New Yorker. There's no way to
yeah,
figure anything out. It's just like you just never know. But basically, rejection just is like fuel to keep going. But it's just given me a really tough hide. But I don't put myself out the way I used to when I was young. Like, I don't cold pitch people anymore. Like I'm like, no, I'm not putting myself out that way, but um, I was just so lucky to be part of it. Actually, it's still up, this exhibition of celebrating the New Yorkers having their 100-year anniversary this year. So there's a lot of events around it. And one of them was this incredible show of original covers. And there was an opening for it right before our trip to Mexico. And I had two pieces in it. And the all of these cover artists were there, some like really famous. I was so excited to meet all these people, some young, like they've only had one cover. And I'm tying this together. I met a couple of these women who had had one cover. And one of them, I said, so I'm talking to one of them and I'm like, so do you submit all the time? And she's like, oh, no, I couldn't handle the rejection. And I was like, wow, okay. That's just
interesting.
I don't know
Yeah.
how far you get with that, but I guess some people do get asked to submit things. I don't, I just send stuff, but some people are approached by the New Yorker to pitch, so
Yeah.
there's so many different ways that people get in there that it's like impossible to,
Well, I think the fact that you have 10 covers maybe shows that
10.
the fact that you
Yeah.
don't give up and you are like regularly reaching out to them, that's a
well,
testament
there
to
was
that.
4 years in between my first and my second. So that was a really rough 4 years because I thought I was in, when I had my
Mhm.
first, and that first one really blew up. Like that was a really big deal because it was something very close to people's heart, the gay marriage,
Yeah.
and it got a lot of press. Like I got a ton of local press. I got like it was a big deal. So then I'm just submitting and submitting and submitting and nothing for 4 years. I was like, it was very hard to keep going. And then I had my second cover right after Trump was elected the first time. And I remember that it was like a terrible, like it was a political cover, and then mine was the joyful cover, like afterwards.
Mhm.
Like I think that they think about what people need to see. And
Mhm.
I think
Yeah.
sometimes, like when things are really dark, maybe they think people just need to see something joyful,
Right. Right.
So
Yeah.
that's what I count on.
Yeah. Well, good for you
Uh,
for not giving
that's,
up. And I think that's
yeah.
that's a great piece of advice actually, to our listeners is don't give up and
Don't give up.
yeah.
Don't give up. And in fact, we love to ask our guests to give some advice. What is some advice that has been given to you, Gail, that you sort of hold in your heart or you like to share with some of your students?
I think I just always say, does this spark joy for you? Like to paint
Mm,
this way, to draw this way? Like what would make you feel joyful? That's really important to kind of always think about that because, people are just navigating so much fear and worry and like, does it look good or blah, blah, blah. All these things are going on in their head and so insecure and to constantly try to come back to, well, does it make you feel good?
Yeah.
Does it bring
Yeah.
joy? Like, so I guess,
Put your joy out there.
yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah.
One of the most important things.
Well, watching you work brings me joy.
Oh, thank you, Lori.
I think you're
And
just
our
so
listeners,
amazing.
please look up Gail's work. Take a look at her covers. Take a look at her beautiful website and all her artwork, because she will definitely bring you joy. And she's incredible. Gail, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Some of this conversation definitely took a turn into unexpected territory. It was
We
really
did.
fun. I really enjoyed it. Thank
We
you.
pivoted. Well,
We
thank
like
you
to
so much.
surprise people.
Yeah, well, thank you for reblooming with us, and to our guests, peace, love, and rebloom.
Life is too short not to follow your passions, so go out there and let your heart plant you where you are meant to be and grow your joy.
We will be right here sharing more incredible stories of reinvention with you. Make sure to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode of Rebloom.
Until next time, I'm Jamie Jameson.
And I'm Lori Siebert.
Peace, love, and rebloom, dear friends.